So I think we've got to learn how to fail intelligently. Provocative statement.
Why would you even do that when failing stupidly is so much easier, John? Come on. What do you even mean by intelligently? Right? So that's an oxymoron.
I would suggest even not to fail. Why should we fail?
Yes, the German approach.
Okay, so innovation's got to be about failure because it's about uncertainty. It goes with the territory, okay? You can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. There's a nice little phrase for you, but essentially that's what it's going to be about. And we know that because it's embedded in many of our up-to-date fashionable methodologies. Lean startup, agile innovation. It's all about, you try something out, you get feedback, is it working or not? Does the market like it, whatever?
Yeah.
No, but generally it doesn't say stop. You say, oh, okay, so what can we learn from that? And we'll pivot.
Yes.
And that's nice. And there's a kind of intelligent approach to doing that. It isn't about we'll pivot here and we'll pivot there and you're just hunting from trying to find something. It actually tries to get towards something. There's an idea of intelligent failure in that.
Now, some companies who need innovation most are utterly conservative because it saves life. Because in an airplane industry, right, when we are Airbus, we don't want to fail, right?
Oh, I don't want to come in on the
when
plane.
The door falls out, right? You know, you're in the news and you lose 10% of the value of your company. When you work in a hospital, you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. This was an intelligently failed patient and is now deceased, unfortunately." You know, are you going to tell? So there are, or in criminality, or in there are some. So which are probably the most conservative one who need innovation most, where failure is not an option.
You got the opposite spectrum too, where unnamed company and a few are so fearful of failure that they don't want to take that route to test it, and so they want to bring it to market quickly, and it's brought to market, and again, you'll see the result because it wasn't tested and they didn't want to go through and fail a few times. They will deliver a minimal product and one that fails in the market for customers at their expense.
I started my life as a lab assistant in a chemistry laboratory, right? Laboratory. What is a laboratory? It's a place where experiments happen. And what happens with many of those experiments is they don't work. Yeah. And I have been known for blowing things up and coming home with burns and all sorts of things. I wasn't a very good lab assistant. But nonetheless, that's what a laboratory does. It's a safe environment in which you take risks.
Yes.
The experiments are not random. That's where I disagree with this natural evolution. We are much more sort of focused. We decide to experiment with that or that. So unique, dynamic capability. In innovation, it's got to be dynamic capability at the heart of your philosophy. You can't rely on the old routines to deal with problems you've never seen. In innovation, the key to creation is keep on building up your dynamic capability. Dynamic capability. Dynamic capability. Everyone now is opening an innovation lab. If we're serious about intelligent failure, we should use what we've learned about how to manage that process of failing via planned experiment, via controlled experiment. We should start building some of that.
Well, it at least helps with something that is, everybody makes a business case and then do a presentation to convince the management to say yes. It's all spreadsheet management, right? It's always a hockey stick and it's based on assumptions. The good news of doing experiments and scaling up experiments is that you have facts, right? You have facts and real data to base a business case on. Hey, we tested it and we tested it in our lab and we got customers there and we did kind of a unofficial launch in the lab, and these are the results of the first 3 months instead of making all kinds of assumptions.
Because it reminds me of unintelligent failure. Examples of unintelligent failures in the innovation space. We had an airship race in the 1930s when the Zeppelins and so on. Yes. This was like Airbus and Boeing of its time. The Germans were really good at building these airships. The British, this was a matter of national pride. Yes. So we had major programs to get a competitive airship. One was a program run by the government, so huge money, but also huge prestige attached to it. It must do this by them. This is politically visible. The other was a private venture run on a shoestring. But these two, the R100 and the R101, were built side by side. And it's well documented. In fact, there's a novel written about it, wonderful novel.
Nice.
But what was tragic, literally tragic, was the pressure, the fact that there was no space in which to safely experiment. We must have this, we must have this, we must push. And sadly, the airship flew into a hillside in France. And everyone was killed, it was a disaster. But it was an avoidable one. Had there been the space that the other team took, the other team said, look, we probably lost this race, but we'd rather be safe than sorry.
I'm uncomfortable with this framing of failure. I'm okay with experimentation. I'm okay with the diligence that you're talking about there, considering downside risk and managing for that. I also feel like even if an experiment was unsuccessful, the idea is that you still learn from it, and so therefore in some sense that you haven't failed. And I like this position from that I take from Stoicism, which is to say that in any sense that I'm in a circumstance that appears negative, if I choose to properly reframe the circumstance, I can find the upside in that. And I'm with Karina on this thing about culture. Part of presenting the space that you're talking about, of creating that space, of making it okay to what you call fail, I would rather say what we're actively trying to do now is learn.
Innovate to fail or fail to innovate?
No, that's a nice challenge. No, the process is about reducing uncertainty by trying stuff out and gradually that learning, and that's what Dyson and Edison. That's fine. But managing that in a smart, intelligent fashion. So we've now built that in. We've, I think, learned that lesson so that the agile model now seems to be a good way of developing software, hardware, all sorts of things.
Sure.
Similarly, inside organizations like hospitals, the need for innovation is huge, but we've got to do it safely. So we need to have some way of intelligently managing that process, probably in an offline space, whether it's defined.